Map for digital banking in digital India. In this session, we will have a special address by Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, Chairman of the Manipal Global Education Services Private Limited. The session will be chaired by Mr. Praveen Kumar Gupta, Managing Director, Compliance and Risk, State Bank of India. And the speakers are Mr. Deepak Gupta, Joint Managing Director, Kotak Mahindra Bank Limited, and Mr. K.R. Sudhakar, Chief Executive Officer, Online and Wealth, Aditya Birla Financial Services Group, and Managing Director, Aditya Birla Money Limited. Special guest, Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, to kindly occupy stage. Yes, sir. Okay, I'll do that. I know. Actually, you're not giving the presentation. Yes. Have you loaded it? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, invitees, guests, we are all set. I request you to quickly settle down. We are beginning this session, the fourth technical and the last concluding one of the day, Roadmap for Digital Banking in Digital India. And we have a special address by Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, who is the chairperson of the board of Manipal Global Education Services Private Limited. He has co-founded RN Capital with the intention of funding operational support in technology, e-commerce, healthcare and life sciences. Well, his introduction reads really long, but he has suggested I rather not get into it. Of course, you have been provided with the speaker profile, so I'll skip that. And without spending any more time, I would invite him for his address. Sir.
Folks, thank you for inviting me. I do come from a very different part of this country and in a very exciting part. So I said, when I got this opportunity to talk to you about digital banking, I must come and share a few thoughts. I do believe that there is a big disruption happening in the world today. 200 years ago, a great disruption took place, and that was the invention of the steam engine. For 5,000 years before that, civilization was based upon human muscle and animal power. Countries like India and China with large populations were the richest countries in the world. Then 200 years ago, somebody invented the steam engine, and that led to the Industrial Revolution, concentration of wealth in Europe and countries which had industry and machines, a change in the way people live their lives, and the way people are governed changed. The age of empires ended in 1919 after the First World War, and that set out democratic traditions, socialism, etc., and that's the world we have today. All because of that one event, the invention of the steam engine. Please think about it very deeply. And today, another event is happening which is going to disrupt the world in a shorter period of time, in the next 20, 30 years. So in 50 years, the world will be a very different place. 15 years are past, 35 years are left. And this is going to have a deeper impact on humanity and all countries than what happened 200 years ago. That took 200 years, this is taking 50 years, and we are at the heart of it, and some part of it is going to impact the banking area too. So, let us look at the global digital economy. The world's largest accommodation provider or a hotel is not a hotel. It's not a hotel. It is something called Airbnb, which is a portal or an aggregator. They got a market value bigger than most hotel chains in the world. The world's largest taxi company you know is Uber. The world's most valuable retailer is Alibaba. The world's most popular media owner is Facebook. All have got multi-billion-dollar valuations. And they're all based upon technology because all of them can address global markets sitting down somewhere. And this is disrupting a traditional industry which was leading the world. So the digital wave is leading to massive disruption. Now let's see how it is affecting various other industries. Look at this chart. You will find that all industries are going to be impacted because of the digital disruption, and some industries are going to be impacted much more. There are 4 industries which are going to be impacted very differently, of which banking is one. And why banking? Because banking and financial services is an intermediation business. You take money from somebody on lend and add your services, and that, the way you do it, is now getting disrupted. In India, we have banks' balance sheet worth 1 crore 20 lakh crores. Assuming a 3% disintermediation, that is 3,60,000 crores. The mutual fund industry is worth 13 lakh crores, and they charge a 2% fee, that is 26,000 crores. Brokers and all do something else. They charge in the middle. So the disintermediation process in India is worth 4,50,000 crores. And this is not small money. 4,50,000 crores for an economy of 1 crore 37 lakh crores as of 31st of March 2016. And this industry is facing disruption. Media is facing disruption. Media is facing disruption because the largest news mover in this country is not the Times of India like you believe, because more people need news portals than the Times of India. Right? There are more stories on something called Your Story than any other news media in this country. So we are seeing disruption in the media. We're seeing disruption in technology, and we are seeing disruption in other areas too, particularly the supply chain. Now this disruption is here to stay. We are in the middle of it. I won't say middle, we are the starting phase, and this is going to have a greater impact as we go along. And if you look at this chart, it's very confusing, because everybody is trying to disrupt banking because it's extremely lucrative. Banks take deposits, banks lend to people, banks run the payment system, banks do wealth management and provide services, right? Now, as far as the payment system is concerned, with the rise of the mobile revolution, payments can happen on the mobile. And with UPI, the Universal Payment Interface, being released just this week in Mumbai, the payment system is totally disrupted because you can, on a mobile, using just one little password, transfer money to and fro without going to a bank. You can do it in the mobile, you can do it in the payments bank, you can do it in the payment system, anywhere that you want. And the banks which control the payment system, with the blessings of the regulator, will now find that this payment system, which gave them so much of money, so much of float, is up for grabs with everybody else. And then when it comes to lending in America, we are seeing peer-to-peer lending come. We are seeing disruptors in mortgages. It's happening in India too. You got FaceSend, a peer-to-peer lending platform in Delhi, and you got SwitchMe, a platform which switches mortgages and gives you lower rates. So many of these entities are coming up, and they're doing it in a manner which is going to hurt the banking industry in a very big way. But luckily for us, all our Indian banks have one single database are on core banking. So they can fight back dramatically within a short period of time if they get their act together. And if they do that, we'll have great competition, lower costs, and better efficiency. So we are not as vulnerable as banks in America, which have got 10, 12 different technology databases. Because India went in for core banking, they spent 20,000 crores for a period of 10, 12 years. And today, because of in the last 10, 12 years, banks' assets have gone up 5, 6 times, liabilities have gone up 7 times, and profits have gone up maybe 10 times, but people have gone up only 5%. Sir, in State Bank of India, what was your balance sheet 15 years ago and what is the balance sheet today? What are the number of people you had 15 years ago and what is the number of people today? You probably have lesser people today than you had 15 years ago, but your balance sheet has gone up 10, 12 times. Your profits have gone up enormously. It happened because of core banking. So in India, we have this technology, but people must know how to use it. And if you look at wealth management, if you look at all the service of banks, you find all these things happening. The lending club is coming, then you've got the payment system getting disrupted, the mobile banking is coming, etc. But banks are trying to fight back. Banks have got enormous resources. They're trying to fight back if the regulators leave them alone. The regulators have taken away $60 billion of profits of American Bank by imposing fines on them so far. So regulators are trying to impoverish the banks by squeezing them, and giving room to all these innovators to come. So in-house development, people like RBS, SocGen are coming out with fighting back. They're partnering with fintechs. They're investing and incubating innovation. They've got new models of delivery, which is totally electronic based. A new bank like Autumn, which is just a portal, is coming up, and they are leading the charge. But banking is a very big industry. It'll take a lot of time for it to be disrupted, but certainly things are happening. Let's look at India. We got a blossoming digital economy. We missed the industrial revolution. I don't know whether we missed much. Now, we got the digital revolution, hopefully will be the heart of it. And if you look at everywhere, broadband and availability of a mobile phone are going to change India. There are 1 billion mobile connections today. 650 mobile phones are there with individuals. And very soon with Reliance Jio coming, there's going to be a greater disruption than what happened the last 15 years. The big beast is coming into the room with a huge balance sheet and 1,20,000 crores of cash in the bank to spend. I don't know whether they'll succeed, but they're going to disrupt the entire telco industry. So every Indian will have a mobile phone in the next 3 or 4 years. All parts of India will be covered. 99%. The Himalayas only has a little bit of problem. Even though the show ads there in the valleys, you still got 3G, 4G and all that. And that's going to happen. We're going to have a national infrastructure where all the villages are going to be connected. There are 1 lakh villages connected, and balance will get Wi-Fi because the government is eager to spend. Because the government realizes if it wants to survive, it's got to connect every Indian. And then, because of the single platform coming, the internet, 1 billion people, maybe 1.3 billion people are going to be connected together for the first time in history as a single country. We're never a single country. We couldn't talk to somebody in Kohima. The phones didn't work. It was too far away. Now on WhatsApp, we can all talk to everybody. Just think what happens. We're on the same platform. Synchronously, asynchronously, 7 billion people in the planet can be in the same platform. That is the internet. Do business, do e-commerce, communicate to each other, have entertainment, get education, get health facilities, do e-governance and everything else because they got access to a single digital platform. And if everybody is connected together and they work, you remove the disparity and the hold of the supply chain that was there. In the earlier industrial era, there were manufacturers, there were consumers, and there was the supply chain. The people who own the supply chain own the business because you connected the consumer and the manufacturer. Today, the consumer is connected to the manufacturer directly. It doesn't require a supply chain. So distance and geography and costs have become irrelevant. Today, a weaver in Banaras can weave a beautiful silk saree, put up on the web. Somebody from New York will give him money and he can buy and use DHL to supply. It doesn't require a middleman there, right? You want a loan, maybe somebody peer-to-peer lending with RBI allows you will get money from New York or maybe Japan where they get negative rates. He'll give you money because you've got a credit rating which is valid globally. So all these things could happen, and this is the big disruption that's happening. So if you look at the way the digital world is coming by, and the internet is connecting, this is going to drive. And the internet economy is increasing at a rapid pace, faster than the growth of the economy. Government has been very, very proactive. I think Modi intuitively has got this in his mind. He's come out of Digital India. What is Digital India? Think of this. Connect every single Indian through a mobile device with the internet, Wi-Fi, 3G, all over. Imagine 1.25 billion people are connected. Maybe children will have some iPad to play with, and the device cost will come to 2,500-3,000 rupees. Just think everybody is connected. Every Indian is empowered. E-governance to be delivered to them through the internet, to the mobile. In the mobile, you can go on Twitter and abuse Modi. Who says there's no freedom of expression in this country? There's intolerance in this country. You can go abuse anybody you want. Nobody can do anything. You're all on Twitter. You're on Facebook. They can't even arrest you because they don't even know who you are. You can be anonymous. So we can do that. E-governance can come to everybody. Jandan, Gindan and all that money can be transferred. I get educational content. All the media, all the rich content of the world from any university through MOOCs is available to me for free. People can deliver lectures. I can assess them. I can do quizzes. I can do tests. I can get a degree virtually because education is available. Health facilities available. I know what is happening. I can put in my pain points. I get a diagnosis. I can read up all diseases, what to do, where to go, how to do. I can connect to doctors, etc. Entertainment, the world's music, the world's museums, the world's movies, they're all available for free. Maybe some of them are pirated, we got to do something about it. But most of it is available because everybody is putting content. right? Everybody is putting content. And WhatsApp, you can create groups. I can create a groups with people from any part of the world, and we can all chat together, compare notes, and do whatever we want, right? So education, entertainment, health, e-governance, business. I can do e-commerce. I'm a small guy somewhere in a remote place in Kalahandi. I'm a weaver, and I can put up all my stuff on the web, and somebody can buy. I'm a potter. I can sell something. I'm an artisan. India was an artisan economy. It became rich. Then came the industrial age. Now we'll be going back to the artisan age because artisan can connect to the marketplace. And all this is happening. And that's what Modi's got in the digital India. They still don't have all these horizontals to come and to invest in. Hopefully it'll happen. But just think, 1.27 billion people are empowered through connectivity. In the next 5 years, what India will become? Will become a single country. And if you look at the financial services, Jan Dhan, everybody will have an account. Aadhaar is given identity to an Indian. Why is identity important? It's important because if you're a villager with no document about your birth, no address, you come to Mumbai, they tell you, give me your father's name, mother's name, everything, give me birth certificate, you got nothing. But you got an Aadhaar. You don't even have a fingerprint because it's all worn off. So you got an Aadhaar number. Give it to the bank account. You get pension, you get insurance, you get everything. So 1 billion people have got an Aadhaar number. The largest identity program in the world, costing $1.5 billion, peanuts. Only $1.5 billion. It worked. In 5 years, it has changed India. And then you got the payment banks, small banks. In 40 years, I think we had 25 banks. And now in 3 years, we got another 25 banks. Not many will survive because they don't know what a payment bank is. None of these people, I think, know what a payment bank is. They're still going through and finding out. They just applied for a license. We also applied for a small bank. They didn't give it to us. And we're so happy we didn't get it because we said it's not worth it. Because, the big daddy is going to make sure you can't you can't move 1 single inch without taking permission. So we got some problems there. Payments. The IMPS, UPI, and Bharat Bill payments, all free of cost, done by volunteers from Bangalore. You've got to give them a little bit of praise. They're all volunteer, great techies. The UPI is going to disrupt MasterCard. It's going to disrupt all these global cards. MasterCard is very upset. They want a level playing field. MasterCard and Visa, level playing field. What a joke, isn't it? They control the world. And this is the program for 7 billion people or 6 billion people or 7 billion people on the planet, sir. All this is available to you for free. State Bank of India, if they use the technology, can rule the world if RBI allows you. And all this is happening. Then, the digital infrastructure is still evolving. Internet is a little bit slow. Somebody wrote a book about India, and they came and told me about a story in Vanaras. In Vanaras, she was asking for an internet connection, and she asked him, why is it so slow? That person told her, Madam, in Varanasi, we got direct connection to God immediately. But internet takes some time. So internet takes some time to go. Mobile phones, billions. Smartphones, 15%, penetrating at 100 million. How do people connect? 90% connect through 2G. There is 95% prepaid market. 255 million transactions using wallets are happening right now. And English, now we're going to get a software that's available where I speak in Tamil and you speak in Malayalam, you speak in Assamese, and we both understand each other because it translates. Can you believe that it's there? I speak in English, I speak in Marathi, and you speak in Malayalam, and we both understand each other. Because what I hear will be Malayalam, and what you speak will be Marathi. And it's 95% true. Now we can speak to each other, we can do so many things with each other. Look at this. In the emerging digital system, look at this data. The BCs have gone up tremendously. Mobile banking volumes have gone up by 113% CAGR in the last 2 years and 330% in value. And of course, SBI leads in it. We don't give credit to SBI because the SBI, they've been around 200 years. We say they might be stodgy, but they moved very fast. And I think the SBI story of technology is a remarkable story of technology transformation. I wish somebody write the story one day and give them due credit. But look at all this data, how things are happening. The Indian bank's response, the ones who had taken technology earlier are earning massive spreads. In not many countries of the world do banks get 4% spread. 4% spread shows lack of competition. It's almost usurious to have a 4% spread. Look at all these banks which have a 4% spread. They're all technology adopters because the market is still not competitive. It's still a supply-driven market, not a demand-driven market because there's less supply. And if you look at all the margins there, the early adopters are making more money. There are a lot of fintech companies coming up. P2P lending, FaceN, Millap, etc. Personal finance, CoverFox, Policy Bazaar. CoverFox is running at a fast pace. Crowdfunding is coming. New payment banks on the radar. Some of them are doing well. Mobile wallets are coming. There's no money in the mobile wallets. It's something that the Paytm has to give you money to keep in the wallet. But young people are doing. The biggest change is ask any person below the age of 35 how they do banking. Ask a 20-year-old how they do banking. That is the change. Because in 10 years, the 20-year-old is going to be the major consumer. And he'll have discretionary money to spend. And that's where our banks are not connecting. Banks should connect with 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And that's where the change is going to come. Are banks doing enough? First, we got to understand what is not digital. Adding new channels is not digital. Adding delivery of services in new devices is not there. Enhancing old technology is not digital. Giving legacy process by changing is not digital. Automating is not digital. This is not digital banking. So what is digital banking? Digital banking has 4 standout characteristics. 1, the customer is the focus point. Everything is built on the customer. You see 18-year-old, find out what he wants and give him the way he wants it. Give him the way she wants it in the way she wants it. Right? The customer experience at the beginning. Integrate banking seamlessly in the lives of consumers. And individual identity is more important. Convenience, speed, personalization 24/7. So build banking around consumers. Don't make them come to your brand. They were not going to come. They've gone away. Second, insight ahead of everything. Look at big data, analytics, capture, learn, leverage, run algorithms, and find out what is happening, patterns, segmentation, etc. So analytics is the key. Data is everywhere. Use the data. Our banks are not use data. Core banking has rich data. You not use data. You don't know customer patterns. You don't know what is happening. I was at a meeting with governor where I said that, you got huge data. You write algorithms to find out any patterns. What happened in BOB could have been prevented because you know those patterns. You have to write it and control it somewhere. The chairman should find it. They're not doing that. Mass personalization is real. Next, you got to be in the heart of the tech disruptors, seamless and unbound. You cannot do every technology. There are many, many tech disruptors coming. Take them inside. Create on top of your core banking a layer of APIs and allow all these startups to come and access to the APIs and use them. So you're partners. So partnership, cooperation is the way to go because automation, cooperation allows you to get the leverage. Ecosystem before the bank. That means the bank cannot be a self-contained ecosystem. The ecosystem is much larger. Become a part of the ecosystem and it lies in opening up your bank. So your API should rule the space, otherwise you'll be ruled out. And this a small thing, we don't have to fear because there are 2 big providers in this space, Finacle from Infosys and Tata, TCS. And Finacle has got all of this, blockchain technologies, all this all over. So our technology providers can make a bank strong because they have the technology. And you can see all the data. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. It was indeed very, very insightful. Sir has to leave, so if we have any questions for him, specifically for him.
No, I have a suggestion actually.
Uh-huh.
I think since a lot of us wanted to say some of these and he's already, said all of those points. So it may be better if we just have a debate rather than, because, I think what we had to say was practically a lot of these points. I don't know whether others agree. Maybe a couple of more points and then we can just go ahead. Otherwise we'll just keep repeating all that.
What does the chairperson have to say?
Yeah, sure. No, it's okay. I don't know how long. No, I think we can all have a debate. We can spend 15, 20 minutes. Yes. We can take few points and then we can question it. Sure.
I had a presentation. Maybe quickly just repeat some of it. Or maybe just have a question answer. No, I'll just maybe go there and show some of it in my presentation. I'll skip the slides which are repeating actually. I have some more data that I can add. Okay, as Mr. Deepak Gupta said, I think Mr. Pai has covered most of what all of us wanted to say. I had a small presentation. I'll just very quickly go through. Most of it would be repeat. I think Mr. Pai talked about the disruption. I think some of the sound bites which I collected which tell you about the disruption, how the digital is going to disrupt the entire, not only banking, I think the entire business, how it is done actually. He compared it with the invention of steam engine. Here I had somebody talking about it, saying that it's probably more significant than invention of writing and even of printing, which are considered to be the most important innovations that have happened. It's not just the businesses that are going to be affected. I think more than the businesses, it's the people working the businesses also, the employees, how they have to reskill themselves, how they have to learn about how they are going to develop new business models and how they are going to deliver. That is going to be also very important. So in fact, when we talk of digital banking, so what does it mean actually? I think, again, Mr. Pai covered most of it. Is it internet banking? Is it e-commerce? Is it mobile banking? Is it social media? Or is it cloud? Cloud is probably, he missed out actually on the cloud. Because what is happening with the cloud is that earlier if you wanted to start something on the digital, you needed a whole lot of investment actually. You needed to buy a lot of hardware, software, technology, a lot of things were required. Now with the cloud, with a very little investment, you could actually start a new fintech company. You could hire the hardware as well as the software, and the cloud enables you to do that. And cloud is affecting the way we do our personal things also. Analytics, yes, I think this is a very, very important part of the whole digital journey. Mr. Pai touched about that also. I think banks are doing a lot of work on that also, and if they have to remain in business, they need to be doing that. Again, Agile is something which all the IT departments of the banks are doing. Again, this slide shows is as a consumer, it doesn't matter how you deliver the services actually. Ultimately, it's going to be platform agnostic. On each platform where you deliver the service, the customer expects it to be delivered. Again, some technical jargon. He talked about APIs, service-oriented architecture, which the banks need to build. Within the bank, actually, we are looking at it as some kind of integrated system which involves mobile, analytics, cloud, as well as social. So this, again, I think he's already talked about it, how in education the digital is changing, healthcare, how changes are happening in the healthcare also. Digital is driving that. This slide, I think this is already covered. Within the banks, what are the various factors that are transforming financial services industry? So important ones out of these are the customer expectations, emerging technologies, emerging competition. The competition is not just from the other banks, but the competition is from whole lot of new players. Small banks, payment banks we talked about, they are still more like banks. I think it's the non-banking companies, people who offer one particular part of the service which the bank offers, they are going to be the new competitors. Public perception, regulatory impact is again having a lot of impact. See the way capital requirements are changing, the Basel is coming up with the new requirements. So there again, a lot of digital transformation is happening. Again, this is what I think very briefly Mr. Pai touched about. I think the whole digital journey for any bank has to involve the customer. The customer has to be at the center. There is data available within the banks. I think within SBI, sir, we have 240 TB of data actually. And we have put in a team of almost 100 people who are going through all the data. We have engaged some consultants. So we are using the data to learn what the customer preferences are, understand their behavior, and then tailor a product offering to meet the customer expectations. The challenges for the bank, mobile banking, I think it's more or less already there. It's not so much of a challenge. We have been able to shift a lot of our existing customers onto the mobile. And as the latest data shows, even though SBI was a late starter, we are the number one now in terms of the number of transactions as well as the volumes happening on the mobile banking. People engagement and overcoming organizational silos. I think this is another one big problem which the banks would be facing. So right now, a lot of things are done within the banks, and they're all in silos actually. How do you integrate all of that? That is going to be one of the biggest challenges, particularly for the public sector banks. Core banking platforms, luckily we are already there, but there again, there is a lot of integration required actually. As in one of the earlier slides, we talk about the platform agnostic servicing that we have to offer. Security is another very big issue, which I think probably it didn't get touched upon. A lot of cyber crimes are happening. Cyber security is a big issue. You know the recent case about the Bangladesh Central Bank, where a lot of money got shifted out actually. So how do you meet all the security challenges that arise out of digitalization is going to be another big challenge that the banks are going to face. some myths. The customers request a digital banking experience. I think that is right. But here, the few things we have been talking about the branch as being dead. We think branch is not really dead. What has happened is the branches are required. About 10 years ago, we talked about internet-only banks. Luckily, it didn't happen. In fact, there was a time when the banks had stopped opening new branches. Then we found that in the process, we are making it difficult for the people to access the banking services. Then again, the banks started new opening. Last 5-6 years, we did open a lot of branches. Now, again, there is a rethinking that, what we need is not a branch of the old type, where we had a whole lot of people sitting in the branch. Branches are more for delivery now, or for the branches to actually come and interact when they open account or when they actually face some service. Though in SBI particularly, sir, we have a huge problem. We have a very large number of pensioners also. So who actually would like to come to the branch and draw their pension every month and spend time with their other friends, because all of them come to the branch. They want to sit with the branch manager, have a cup of tea actually. So for those people alone, I think we'll have to keep the branches going. But of course, the branch of tomorrow is going to be very different from the branch of today. So this is how we think that the branches are going to change. I mean, this tells you how a branch looked like, and the branch looks today. And these digital branches that SBI has opened, where you practically have not much of staff, whole lot of machines, terminals, display screens where you can go and interact. I think we have 2 of such branches in Bombay also, one at the Phoenix Mall in Kurla, and we recently won a shorter version of it in the Colaba also. So this is what we think that the branches are going to look like, where you go and practically do all your services yourself. You may not need the bank staff, but you at least need a platform where all of this can be done actually. About SBI is what we have been doing. About $1 billion is expense, 24,000 branches for 54,000 ATMs. ATMs, again, probably we may not need so many of them going forward. Important thing here is 76% of our transactions happen through the digital channels. I think this ratio is probably more for some of the private sector banks, but we think that this ratio from 76 can go to 90-95%. About the staff, again, as Mr. Pai mentioned, we have now lesser number of staff than we had earlier. Every year we are getting rid of almost 10,000 staff, which actually retires. And despite the fact that volumes are going up, it's only the technology which is enabling us to be able to open more branches, to be able to offer more services, still with a lesser number of staff. On social media is going to be incredibly important going forward. And that is here we are. We actually started late. Right now on the Facebook, SBI is the #1 financial services company with 5 lakh followers. So it tells you, like recently there was a survey done by the financial brands of top 100 banks, and SBI actually figured 1. And see the India rank in terms of on all the social media sites, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter. I think we are all #1. In fact, the Twitter sent us a cake a few days back actually to celebrate having become the #1. So how the future of banking is going to be, I think some of it has already been spoken. Maybe we can have a little more discussion of it going forward. Thank you. So maybe what I'll request Mr. Deepak Gupta to make a few opening remarks, and then we can quickly have a discussion.
It's normally very difficult to, talk after Mr. Pai. But I'll just make it brief, 5 minutes. I happen to be from Banaras, so I, sort of share a lot of Mr. Pai said, really. I agree to all the things he mentioned about Banaras. And we are also Infosys users. So again, all his comments about how core banking can help banks, at least in India, are actually very relevant. But unfortunately, he's from Bangalore and we are from Mumbai. So there are a lot of points on which we sort of tend to disagree, particularly the ones related to commercials. Yeah, Bombay is normally more commercial and Bangalore is normally more tech savvy. So I guess there is a point of view which is different on the basis of commercial. Sorry? Well, he still wants to, we just were having a chat before this in a small room, and he said he wants to be only in Bangalore. So Bangalore still wants to be in Bangalore. And he recommended that Bombay goes to Delhi, actually, so that we have some of that convergence, really. But some of that, every CEO of a bank has a dream,
And that dream is, how can my IT team develop that killer app which will overnight get me, millions of customers? Yeah, but it is always a dream. There is nothing as utopic as that. And similarly, every CEO has a nightmare. The nightmare is, will Paytm take away all my customers tomorrow morning? Yeah. That's the big dilemma for every banker. Unfortunately, how much of digital is good enough? You don't have easy answers for that. And when you look at it from a banker's perspective, Mr. Gupta mentioned that, let's say at SBI, they spend about $1 billion in IT. Mind you, 95% of that IT spend goes in maintaining and keeping business as usual. Yeah, and mind you, there is hell of a lot of innovation even in that 95%. What he has actually for trying out new technologies, new issues, is only that balance 5%. And the dilemma for them, all of us really, is how do I allocate this 5% across the numerous technologies which are out there, so that I am the first one with my wallet, I'm the first one with my so-called killer app. And there is no easy solution for anything like that. He mentioned a lot about how technology and how mobile and how retail will change all our thinking. But again, back to the dilemma of a banker really is, when you look at it from a banker's perspective, and this is more commerce than technology, the money is with the 45 pluses. Unfortunately, the large hordes of customers that he mentioned are in the Gen X, the 25 nothings. Yeah? So all the customers and all the technology spend you need to do is for the 25 nothings, whereas all the money which a bank makes really is out of the 45 pluses really. Yeah? And that's a big dilemma. The 45 pluses, at least as of now, and hopefully not for the next 5 to 10 years, are not as technologically savvy. Yeah? And that's a big problem. Because it's nice to say that, I will acquire a lot of these 25 nothing customers because 5 years later they will have some money. But just like the hordes of these 25 pluses is growing, they're also very, very finicky. They will change banks at the drop of a hat. Someone else has a new app, I will change my bank account. So it is not just investment in acquiring these customers really. So how do you spend money? How do you allocate resources into digital? That's point number one. The second big dilemma for a banker again really is, yes, digitization is big business. All the points that he mentioned about, the mobile, the smart mobiles, the Aadhars, all of that really, the UPIs. Again, the problem really is, if you look at, what all a bank does, a bank does 100 different businesses. A bank earns money from 200 different products and businesses. All of these retail-related developments on digital are largely in the payment space. Yeah, largely in the payment space. In fact, there is a recent study by McKinsey which shows that 24% of investment in digital is essentially in payments space, really. But when you look at a bank, from a banker's perspective, payment accounts for only 5% of a banker's revenue. How do you justify digital investment in a space which only accounts for 5% of my revenue? So there is a disproportionate inequity in this. And hence, from bankers' prudence point of view, it is very important that we allocate, more meaningfully digital investment across a wider base of products. A lot of us seem to have forgotten the non-retail businesses in this digital game. And mind you, at least as a banker, I'm sure that the fintechs of this world will take away some of these payment revenues of a bank. Yeah, they will be strong competitions. And by the way, Mr. Pai, I think you did a mistake by giving up the small bank license. I think the payment banks don't have a business model. But the small banks still have some business model really for some time really. Yeah. So back again, I think banks will lose some of their revenue pools to some of these fintechs. But it's the non-retail space, I think, where bankers really have a big role to play. And I think a lot of investment of bankers must get into this. Mr. Pai again touched upon a very interesting piece when he mentioned, you have a core banking and you expose APIs to the world. That's a very interesting concept. Actually, if some of you have read the latest Harvard Business Review last month, they talk about a very interesting concept. They compare pipes and platforms. All of us, traditionally are used to pipe business. Yeah, money must come in, it is there in the bank, and at the end of it, I give it off to another customer. Increasingly, and this is very important for bankers really, models are changing to platforms. And let me give you an example. It's like a mall. You have a mall. What does a mall do? It invests only in infrastructure within the mall. Yeah, but it allows people to come and set up shops in the mall, really. A platform is very much similar. It's like Apple. Your iPhone is a pipe. It's a product. Yeah, you use it for a certain set of features. But an app store is a platform. What do you do in an app store? You allow thousands of application developers to use the APIs and develop products on their own. And on the other side, you have millions of customers who use these applications. I think increasingly, non-retail banking, at least in the digital world, has to necessarily move from pipes to such platforms. A banker must just make the infrastructure available. And he rightly mentioned, I must just make my APIs available. Yeah, and people must come, develop around those APIs, and I will have customers who will come and use. They just use our platform. So you start offering specialized, non-retail corporate services, really. Yeah. So that's, I think the world will really move increasingly on that. Just to summarize, I think so, as you look at a banker's perspective into digital, I think it's important for a banker to decide the strategy. Which segment is he or she going to focus on? Will it be retail? It's going to be very, very competitive. The fintechs will really give us a run for our money, really. Yeah, so very important to start investing in the non-retail segment from the digital perspective, and there are a lot of opportunities. The second really is to get the structure right. Today, digital for a bank is one sub-part of IT. Digital needs necessarily to be, elevated to actually a CXO position in a bank, really. And the third part really is how will all of this get implemented? Thank you.
Yeah, while they're doing it, I'm in fintech space. I'm not a banker, like this. So I'm one of those guys trying to disrupt. Trying. Well, let me give you my perspective on some of what's happened. I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Pai had said. Some of these data is very easy to see. Everybody has seen this data. But here is a data point which says that India has, the second table says that 98% of our volumes of retail transactions are still cash. Maybe 68% is by, value terms. But the volume terms, it's still cash. And you look at the banking revenue stream, it is still 59% savings. We are still essentially a CASA country. And with this data, I think everybody's talked about, we still have a long way to go in penetrating. But we are still, a traditional banking. Branch banking is certainly more expensive than digital, but we still call the branch banking as the core. Digital banking is an alternate channel. Digital is easier and easily scalable. innovation has to happen, and I'll share some of what we've done. But we remain a country that transacts on checks for free, but we still charge for NEFT and RTGS, at least for the retail customers. So how are we going to get digital? What do we need to do to make digital? Cash has to go. We are changing. I think everybody talked about the demographic dividend. Everybody talked about data. I think we clearly are changing. The country is changing. The 25-somethings do have enough money. It may not be as much as the 40s and the 45s have, but we still have money, and there is enough to be made at that level. Paradigms are changing. Like he said rightly, it's no longer pipes, it is platforms. So it's no longer deposit business which offers payments for free. It is going to be payments and deposit come incidental. Financing is a serious activity needing engagement paperwork. No longer the case. We've seen several instances of that happening. We don't need paper anymore. The sooner we get out of it, the better for everybody. It saves a lot of money, time, energy, cost, everything. Digital channels are alternate branches of core. That is really going to change. The sooner people change, the better. Customer decides to buy something and then we help him finance it. It's the other way. That's happening everywhere. Globally, people have done it. I think there are enough instances of APIs being made available by bankers for others to come in and run their own application. There are several other big banks that have done it. I'm not going to cover all of this. But here is the point. Despite everybody doing this, they are still seeing disruption. Alipay accounts for 65% of digital payments in China. That's 1%. So it's a serious challenge. Anybody can come and disrupt. While yes, the banks do have their challenges, but people can come and disrupt. That is going to be the reality. We are doing our bit, but cash has to go. And I think that is one area where everybody will have to work together. I think the unified payment mechanism is really going to be a big game changer. It takes away the network effect from one bank to all the banks put together. It's a huge initiative, and it's a big surprise for some of us to see that happening in such a short time. It's an amazing opportunity for everybody who comes in. We moved from barter to cash several centuries ago, but it's time now to move from cash to digital. That's how we see it. And the costs are down. Costs are seriously down. If it costs, 50 rupees a branch transaction, it costs 1.5 rupees a mobile, and it's going to come down with UPI, further. The same for CapEx. Anybody who starts a digital bank today is going to spend a lot less than a person that has to set up, or having to maintain CapEx for technology. And policy changes are really helping. Surprisingly, policy changes in this case are really helping. We've got everything from getting a customer in can now become paperless. Through Aadhaar, through e-signatures, through biometrics, getting a customer in can become paperless. Engaging with that customer can become paperless. Transaction can be mobile-based. We've got DBT happening through bank accounts, which will ensure that the banks, we talked about the active usage of Jan Dhan. All of that can become actually useful. But what the industry should respond, this is one learning which I can share from what we've done. It is about customer inwards. It is not about product outwards. It is not about what products I have. It is not about my technology person, thinking through and saying this is how we will do it. It is not replicating something that happens physical into the digital mode. That doesn't work, and we've seen it. It really doesn't work. What works is something really different. I call it Amazonizing finance. We did one. I can share the experience of us in my universe. In 10 months of launch, we're now the 7th largest SIP distributor in India. And people have taken 10 to 20 years to get to that level. What we did was very simple. Today, if you want to get a bank account or buy a mutual fund, for instance, what we have to do as investors is to find a bank, is to find a distributor, is to find an advisor, give documents, get the KYC done, which takes some time between 3 days to 5 days to a week, and then do risk profiling, and then find out which mutual fund to invest in, which scheme to invest in. By the time we get to invest, it's about a week to 10-day process. It takes minimum a week to 10 days, and a mutual fund is something that I want to buy now when I want to buy. We don't do that, and India as a country, Indians as citizens and as people don't do that. We want to buy a phone. We first go pick up the phone, in Amazon, in Flipkart, in Snapdeal, put it into a shopping cart, and the shopping cart then asks you, give me your name and address, because I want to send it to you. So once you give all the details, it says, okay, go give me the payment and I'll do it. So it takes 2 minutes to 3 minutes to do this. So why can't we think of financial processes like that instead of doing it the way we want it done, which is what we did in My Universe. So we get the customer to come in, do his risk profile, we show him the set of mutual funds that he or she can buy, they select it, put it into an investment cart, then we ask the details. The only additional detail we ask is for the PAN number because we need it to get to know whether it's a KYC customer or not. And if he's a KYC customer, we get all the details, we just transfer him to a bank account that is his regulated bank account, and he transfers the money, and in 2 minutes transaction is done. What otherwise takes 10 days to do can be done in 2 minutes. And this can be done by everybody. We don't have to be thinking like a large bank or a small bank or a large distributor, a small distributor. Anybody can do this. And this change is what the customers want. And this is the message that I want to leave, that it is not about us having our own challenges and intentions. It is about what the customer wants. If we can deliver that, we can create value and customer sees value. I think the rest of it everybody talked about. The one area in this that I want to say is, ubiquity of that transaction system is critical. That everybody using that same transacting system is what makes it that much more viable and useful for everybody. And that is what the unified payment system really does. It's really going to be big. I hope we make it all big. The future is bright. I think we are seeing a mega trend, whether we like the government or not, whether we like the political parties or not, whether we like us as a country or not. We are seeing the poor becoming less in number, and the rich and the middle class increasing in number. It's been happening over the last 5-10 years. It is going to continue to happen. So there is going to be more number of people who are going to come into the banking system, and they're going to come with money. So it's up to us to use this value. Mobile is going to be becoming big. And whatever data that we are seeing, we're going to see doubling of number of accounts, doubling of smart users, smartphone users. So the opportunity is immense. It is really for us to realize the value, capture that value, and think a little differently. It will really help. Thank you very much.
Okay. So
there's one slide I wanted to show. I don't know whether I should show it, but this is a slide that I saw. This is a line that I heard every time I went to, in one of the seminars in the Washington. Almost everybody was saying it. Banking is needed by all, but we don't need the banks. We need the banks. So I hope we'll change it. We need the banks too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gupta and Mr. Sudhakar. And personally, thanks a lot, sir, for staying back, actually. So I thought, we have quickly done with the presentation. So maybe we can make use of the opportunity of availability of Mr. Pai, who very graciously decided to stay back. And maybe we can have some round of questions, actually, from you.
Bitcoin.
No. Yeah, Bitcoins are just started, and I think it's a fantastic algorithm, but it has got to take off. And I think it's taking off in a certain section of the population in a certain way. And the technology developed for Bitcoins of blockchain, that is going to change banking, and that's going to change transaction. Bitcoins will take some time. Yeah, but blockchain technology is adopted by people in India too. Most of the two vendors, both TCS, Infosys, have got that, and they can give it. That's not a mystery anymore. But the technology is fantastic because the technology takes away the power of the bank to maintain your ledger. The ledger becomes yours, and you can shift the ledger to anybody you want. So you become the master of your own data. So Bitcoin will be there. We have to wait and see. It's too premature.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, my question is to Mr. Pai. Mr. Pai, we are talking so much of this digital thing happening, new technologies coming, and India is having one of the best IT minds. What about the phishing mails? It comes even in the name of our governor, banks, every bank, and how they get access to our data. Unless there's some connivance within the banking staff, this data should be not leaked. And so we have recently listened about that Bank of Bangladesh bank funds transferring. These all things, how we are going to, within all this framework, going to take care of the customers?
No, I think Mr. Gupta made a very nice point about cyber security. I think we are behind in cyber security. Because essentially, the challenge for all people in the world is how to have secure data. And that's why blockchain is coming as one of the solutions for secure data, and to make sure that data is kept in such a manner that people don't try to take it away or to cheat or to transfer money. Please remember, there is a lot of cyber attacks happening every day. I was talking to the CEO of Microsoft India, and Bhaskar Pramanik, and he was telling me he's got a knock screen in his office where he can track the bots coming and attacking the networks of all banks in the financial system. I'm sure Mr. Gupta also knows about it. All the banks know about it. So there is an army of people who are trying to break into the network to take away your money. So cyber security is important. It's part of how systems are.
And why we cannot have a common platform in India, all banks, like these mails come. Where do we forward these mails? Because each bank have a different policy and system. Why can't we have all these Indian banking association coming together and have one platform where all we people can forward all our mails and can be addressed, and we get a reply. We never get any reply from banking system.
No, see, I tell you, I think this particular issue we raised even with the CBI also. See, ultimately the cyber security is their responsibility. So apparently now what they have is that they say that even at the All India level, they don't even have a telephone number where you can report. So what the CBI director said actually at one of the seminars which took place here is that at the state level, they have given some numbers actually. Okay, so which we have given.
But sir, how data theft take place from banking system? It's responsibility of bank. How our data go outside?
I tell you, many times it's not the data which is going out from the bank actually. See, there is sometimes, like you go to some conferences, seminars, or even exhibitions, you fill up some forms where you give out some information based on which they actually send you some mails. They don't actually have a data many times when they send you a mail. But they make people respond to it, and then they fish out the data actually. Many times the data gets taken out much later. Initially when they start with, they don't have the data. Obviously, the security is going to be the biggest concern the banks will have. See, the entire move to the digital, only thing, which can stop it is the security part actually. Okay, and the banks.
In my view, sir, unless this is addressed, this whole digital and all these things will be not useful. This is very, very important in Indian perspective. We have large number of population living below poverty line. So all those challenges are there in India. So those things are also to be addressed, sir. Otherwise, poor men will lose their money. Once this Aadhaar data is available to everybody, this will happen.
Look, you're going to have insurance against this. It's going to come. The small percentage of money goes away. Okay, it's not that everything is on the way. There's the risk of doing business. It will come down.
I have a question to Mr. Praveen Kumar Gupta. The SBI, the data that we read in media, and you also referred to it, the pace at which SBI has used mobile banking and other digital tools is fascinating, because considering the age of the bank and therefore probably the age of the customer, for common people like us, it's very, very fascinating. My question to you is, how were you able to engage with the internal stakeholders to manage this change process? Because it would have impacted people, it would have impacted silos, a whole lot of internal transformation. How did you manage that?
So in fact, that is exactly what Mr. Pai was saying, that the SBI should write a book on this transformation of SBI. I think what happened was that there was an early realization that this is the way to go actually. And this is a journey, it started probably more than 10 years back when Mr. Purwar as a chairman took the decision to go to core banking. Okay, so at that time itself, we had about 14,000 branches. So nowhere in the world, a core banking project of that size had been even attempted actually. So to get all our branches onto core banking, of course, we had a lot of hiccups initially. There was a time when we actually stopped implementation and we waited for all the problems to be fixed and then we restarted. So once we got onto the core banking, I think the other parts of the journey were less difficult. So about 3 years back when present chairman, Mrs. Bhattacharya, came on board also. So I think her emphasis was again on digital. She says unless we are able to invest in digital, we are able to mine all the data that already resides within the bank also. So we will not be able to make any headway. See, that is where, other private sector banks will end up stealing all our customers. So first of all, for us, it was a retention strategy also. So we should be able to offer what all the other banks are offering. So the advantage we had was that we are a big bank. We could spend more money, which would be difficult probably for a smaller bank to do. So that is where the advantage of size came in. So whenever we introduced something new, so we already had a large base of customers who could make use of it and we could recover that investment also.
What about the people engagement piece? That's the one that
People
I'm
also,
most
see-
fascinated by.
Yeah. See, as far as people is concerned, we did bring in a lot of experts also. At the same time, there were a lot of retirements that were happening within the banks. Change management, I think, as a bank, this is something which is an ongoing. I think every few years we do have a change management program. When Mr. Bhatt was the chairman, so we had a program called Parivartan, where everybody in the bank actually went through a training program. We are having these programs where we want all our staff members to come to training centers at least once a year, and they get updated. A few things on the digital side we did is that we made training compulsory. See, we have made available our training programs digitally to all our staff. And for their internal